But Coach, we would like to move now to a segment that we call start, sub, or sit. And so for those that are listening, maybe for the first time, we're going to give you 3 different basketball topics, ask you to start one, ask you to sub one, and ask you to sit one. You have not heard these questions beforehand, so these are just
that
off the cuff.
So, I'm already sweating here. So,
well, Coach, we'll have some fun with this. So the first start, sub, sit for you. This has to do. The concept is tough to teach. So which one of these 3 are the toughest to teach from a coaching standpoint, and having to do with pressure? So toughest things to teach: start, sub, or sit. Teaching inbounding the ball against pressure. So the person taking the ball to bounds and being poised, taking it in maybe against the press. Making late game free throws, so pressure free throws. Or handling getting trapped in the backcourt, front court, teaching a player to just be poised within a trap. So start, sub, or sit, the toughest to teach of those 3 concepts.
I'm going to answer like 80% of these with "it depends," which is like, I'm categorically against this, that I have to put like clear, but well, yeah. I would say I will sit the getting trapped. So that's something I think just the team needs to be very organized and have a plan for this. I think most of the time you have issues with that if it catches you off guard or if guys are relaxing. But if you're engaged and doing the things that we work on, like this should actually lead to the outcome that we want, which is to create a numbers situation right away. So we would actually invite this from the other teams and say like, thank you. And we'll take the numbers and play with that because that's how we always play. So that's, it's still not easy to teach, but it's something that we would like to do. Then I would probably sub the inbounding thing just because I don't think we work on it enough. So out of base inbounds or full court pressure, sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. But when you look at synergy play types, there's a lot of unforced turnovers happen in those situations, and they lead to live ball turnovers. And generally that's something where you also got to figure out like who can you have in that position that, like you said, that they are poised and that they have a little bit of misdirection in them, that they can use the eyes and the shoulders to to give wrong information for the defense and still make the passes at the right time. But this is also a design issue. And then probably start with the late game free throws. But this is something that we generally try to work with a time and a score because of this reason, to give the players a real sense of pressure. Also in the practices we have in our shooting drills, we always got to call out, like if we got 12 guys shooting at the same time, we got to call out game winner before you're going to make that shot. Also, same thing, you got to finish a practice with a certain amount of made free throws. If you're the last one, you're going to hear after, or before your last shot, you're going to hear, game winner in the gym and everybody's watching you. We do try to put a lot of emphasis on that. And at the same time might need some, let's say, technical changes. But most of all, I think it's like the environment that is very different from the practice. So I think players are used to doing it in a like, what's it called? Not like serial or random practice, but in a row, like let's say 50 like shots in a row. Blocked. That was the word. Yeah. That I was looking for. Thank you for that. And we try to do it more as like a serial thing. We try to also incorporate different type of skill acquisition methods here. So we will scramble with the shot. We're not afraid of like doing stuff like going off of 1 foot or doing some type of jumps or a 360 spin before this, just to stress it from different angles. And I think this all speaks to the fact that this is a tough thing to learn, and we try to use those things and especially manipulate the environment to at least somehow have the most difficult thing, which is have the practice environment simulate the game environment. So,
sure. Coach, my follow-up, these are all obviously difficult situations, and I loved your answers. I was interested in your answer with the sub, which was inbounding against pressure and finding that person that can have the poise. One of the things that I've found that can be a difficult pass over the years is just when you have a guard sprinting, trying to get open against pressure, and whether they should maybe break down and post up to throw it into them, whether they should just sprint into space, whether it should be a bounce pass from the inbounder or a chest pass. How do you work on getting the ball in to someone flying towards the ball in the backcourt against pressure?
First, it would have to be very clear for the inbounder what his options are and in which direction. I'm very much like a Bill Walsh fan in this, that we try to run like a precision oriented and timing based offense. So he has to have his reads pretty clear, that it's here, here, and then here. And those three other players obviously need to move in sync, which does not happen in the preseason. And sometimes you need the experience from a very good team, like in our league. I would say like Hamburg, Ludwigsburg really apply pressure in these situations, make you really work for it. And then the technical part, I mean, you just got to be in that situation. Depends on the entry also, like what type of entry. So in the beginning, you might see something that like somebody might run like a staggered away or a zipper, and they are all different passes with different timings. So you also got to give it a little bit of time. But I do think in this, like inbounds plays and ATOs, like the inbounder is minimum the second most important guy, after the guy that's, that we run the play for or something like this. But a lot of times the inbounder is the guy who's really got to have a calm head and be ready to go through those different reads and have the technical ability to do it.
Our next start subset for you, Coach, is you have a non-shooter on the perimeter. How do you like to use non-shooters on the perimeter? Screener, cutter, or as a facilitator of a second action, DHO, get into a secondary pick and roll?
Good question again. Man, these are tough. Did I already say it depends? See, we used to use guys as cutters a lot. And I think last season we trended towards the screener. But I do like to use those guys as also what we call or what I call, which my brother laughs at. So as like connective tissue players, because these players are all oftentimes have a they are very developed in other parts of their game. Otherwise they wouldn't be BBL players for a club like ours. So they might have very good anticipation skills, very good passing skills. Can be like this. Can be that the guy is an athlete, and doesn't have this, but has some, other very, very good things. But the difficulty of this question is that we would do all of these three, and it would come out of different situations. It would be applied directly with the context of the opponent. So whatever hurts them the most and what gives us the best chance of winning, we're going to do that. And we're not like bound by doing it one way. I will tell you this, that so you can figure out the order, but we do start them as cutters. Okay. We do start them as cutters. Then we probably go into the screening a little bit more. And then if we have a player like this, like I think situation could be like as a facilitator. So let's say we have a 5 or a 4 that's not a great shooter on the perimeter. Like we might still run a pick and pop for him, like against the downing coverage to get to the second side. with a little bit of advantage, and them not being able to play their primary defense on this side. But this is, I think, conceptually much later on in the process. Very hard to say like in which order, but like who I would start, sub or sit. But that's the order we kind of like introduce these in. So hopefully that is enough.
That's good.
That's perfect. Yeah. You're doing great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Coach, with when you build up to maybe get into that secondary action, I'm always curious, is there a preference to go to a DHO, to throw it and go to a handoff, or to do like a in-between kind of toss and kind of screen them?
You already know what I'm going to answer.
Yeah. In your ideal world. Yeah.
In my ideal world, he's going to pass it straight away and go hit the screen. Why? I'll explain it. Because it means that the ball handler's defender is not in a deny position. The receiver's defender is not in a deny position, and he's already late for it. This oftentimes happen in our other early offense, the ball screen continuation, where we're going side to side with like wing ball screens, and we have the big guys moving in the Klackskalica. I think it's in Serbo-Croatian so they're moving up and down, and then we have one of the players is a cutter or a screener, and then there's two ball handlers. Some teams use 3 ball handlers. We've generally found ways to use 2. So in that situation, if the player is not denied, which means that maybe we take the low man and put him in a bind where he's in a really difficult decision because he has to help on the roll from the other side. But when the ball is swung forward, we might skip it directly. So that's why I would probably start with we're not in that segment anymore, but that's what I would do. I would start that one, the pass. I would start. So I would go with that and sprint to it, or even take the shot or reject it, etc. So that's something, we would do. Then if for any reason, we haven't generated a smaller advantage, then we would initiate with the dribble. And the read is pretty easy. If you see a dribble and you're being denied, you should look to get backdoor out of it. It should only be dribbled when there's no direct pass, because this is clearly a slower solution. And we try to emphasize that speed kills in everything, and that we call a big camera, that we have not a 360 view that would be only reserved for owls, but as much as possible, that we're seeing as much as possible from the floor while we are catching it. So we're swinging. So when I was playing, it was catch, turn, and then make a decision. This is way too slow nowadays. So you have to make all of those 3 at the same time. And you have to have a body position that allows for you to first observe what the defensive positioning is. And then where your offensive player is going to be based on the defensive positioning. So you can actually throw to a spot. And then we'll go from there. So I literally hate regular handoffs. I think they're terrible, So I would then try to pitch it, and especially going downhill and try to pitch it a little bit, go towards the defender of the guy who's going to get the handoff. So pitch it to him and kind of try to nail him there and create a situation where the offensive guy cannot go under. So
Coach, I just got to ask, why do you hate traditional handoffs?
I just don't think they really produce a whole lot. Like the ones where you jump stop with the two feet and then you have the ball here on the side. I think that's one of the situations where we feel like we can get a lot of deflections, a lot of steals, and I think our concept against that is very good. And I know teams use it, generally try to get downhill, which we look to deny, obviously, not to get there, but I just think it's like a east-west type of thing than getting downhill out of that. So it can put you in a good position for the rescreen, because it will create initial separation between the ball handler's defender and the creator and the ball handler. So that can be like its use, but it has to be combined with something else, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Okay.
Does it change at all in like those get actions where maybe the guard throws it to the big and then immediately sprints into the handoff?
Yeah, if you got good players for it, like obviously somebody like Duncan Robinson, from the NBA uses that a lot and is really, really good. But it's also because bigs do a great job of getting low enough position, and he's got range and very quick release, effortless release. So you basically need a player like this for that. In our league, that would be Markus Eriksson for Alba, where those are really dangerous situations, and you really gotta figure out something. We got burned by him in 1 year by basically doing what was back then our concept for those situations, which was what we call gapping it. So the handoff guy's defender would take when we called out gap, he would take leave like a half a meter in between, and the guy could scooch between that, go third. Then when we trailed him, we were like running after him. So that caused a lot. It put us into, again, that like brainstorming mode of having like that this is a weak spot in our defensive concept and we got to fix this. Coaching is problem solving for the most part, that you run into some issues and then you fix them, and then a new issue comes up and then you fix that. And there's no like textbook that you can refer to that this is what we do. So
for sure. All right, Coach, our next start subsit, we got one, maybe two. We'll see with time here for you. Don't want to keep you too long, but our next start subsit for you, these are actions for the inbounder on a silent out of bounds. Okay, so your inbounder, things that you prefer to do with that inbounder after they throw it in on your sideline set. So maybe this will make sense as we go through the options, but after he throws it in, an immediate 45 cut to the rim from the inbounder, setting a flare for the inbounder immediately, or sending that inbounder right back in off of a DHO or some action following the ball, basically. So start subsit, 45, flare, or DHO for the inbounder.
Yeah. I mean, the 45 cut, we will not start with it for sure. It's like a very specific situation. It's like a special. I think Spurs ran it really nicely with one of the bigs flashing to the high post, and then you would get a backdoor cut for Ginobili out of this. But it's something that more you got to catch somebody off guard, and it's generally something that doesn't work in the playoffs. So for sure, we will not start that. Flaring the inbounder, we've done this too. You need a good shooting inbounder. You need a good passer out of the post. And you need a screener for that. It involves a couple of, parts moving. There's moving parts in this one, but it can be very effective. I would say I would start with the DHO because it's quite robust. You can put the ball into play. You can get the DHO and you can run whatever you want to run. Then I would probably use the flaring the inbounder as the next one. So that would be the guy that sits. And then the sub would be sorry to say, but it will be the 45 cut because of the reason that a lot of that stuff will not work in a game 5 on the road in the playoffs when both teams know exactly what the other team is running. And that's something very specific, and that's going to get you a bucket or 6 during the regular season. But at that point, when you need a basket, like they will be calling it the set out and they will know exactly what's going on. And it's also, you need a big guy who can make a bounce pass, with what do you call it? Like either like very close to the body, use misdirection. If you have this type of player, it can be, very efficient, but I would still go with this order.
Okay. Coach, love that answer. My question is with the reads out of the sideline out of bounds play. Do you at all have reads based off of where the defender guarding the inbounder is standing? So if they're off, say maybe trying to double, not let the ball in bounds, you would potentially run something different versus if they're right on top of the ball or they're off. Do you guys have reads, or do you just run a set no matter what?
No, we have reads out of this, and they are something that also develops during the season, because like once somebody does this, I think we had last season, like Ludwigsburg or somebody like jumped it from the inbounders guy, jumped to take the cutter coming out of like 45 or out of a staggered screen, something like this. And then we got momentarily stuck. So, like these coaches are very good. They will smell blood right away, and you can expect to see this and get bullied by it until you fix it. So that's kind of, again, like the necessity driving the invention. So after that, you will come up with counters for that, usually very simple ones that punish right away, that make the other team say, okay, we're not going to want to do this again. So you really want to discourage them. And but for that's how I would say it. Most of it is that first you have the question and then you have the answer, but you have a basic template in the beginning for all of those situations. Like the most common situations, like let's say a zipper, like a 4-1 zipper with the 5 on the opposite elbow, which is pretty common one. Like, what happens if the 1 is denied or they jump it out of the inbounder and then the 4 is denied? Okay, well, you would have the 5 flash, for example. If the 5 is overplayed, he should look the back door, and at the same time, the opposite side wing lifts up, etc. So something like this, that every part is kind of in sync. And when you first put on that entry, it will look like everybody's running around like headless chicken. And then you review it from the video, and little by little, like it never goes like that right away. It's like, okay, this is great. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Coach, our last one, it's we've titled this Unconventional Leaders. So an unconventional leader, start, sub, sit. The rookie starter, maybe the rotational player, 7th, 8th man, let's say, or a veteran bench player, not going to get a whole lot of minutes.
Okay. Well, this is simple.
All right.
So we're definitely gonna sit the rookie starter. He'll be overwhelmed already by the whole situation. He doesn't need. You made this too easy for me, though. You should have put the star player here. You should have put the star player here, or the key player. But the rookie starter is sitting. I mean, they generally have a lot of things already on their mind, and you don't want to, cause too much of a cognitive load for them. Then we are going to sub the aging veteran. But there are big risks with this one. And why? Because I went through it as a player, and I thought at one point I was a very good captain for one of the Finnish teams. And the next year I acted like that, Yeah. So there's a big difference in like earning every day that honor, by your actions. And this is really what sports is about. It's about actions. It's not about like your status or anything like this, but I kind of went from a very good captain in my mind. Our coach can then, agree or disagree. I went from a very good captain to a very poor captain, because in the first year I was really thinking about what's best interest of the team. And I wanted to prove that this is like I was the right choice. And I also had the same experience with Sebastian Herrera 2 years ago, and who's still probably the best captain I ever had, because he was, I think, 21 at the time, and every day wanted to prove that he was worthy of that choice. And that's really what you're looking for in a captain. And with the aging veteran, you can run into a situation where you make a status call, like this player should be because of this. No, the captain should be the one that embodies the DNA of the team and is an important player in the team, which already, this guy is not playing anymore. So it's very difficult to have an important role. Shouldn't be the best player or the key player, because they have to also carry a lot of responsibility at the end of the games, for example. And then the other part is you have to think, like, what type of captain do you need? Do you need somebody who's social? Do you need, like, we generally tend to choose somebody who embodies the DNA of the team, or maybe you want somebody with very good empathy, or who can connect if there are other younger guys. So I would choose the rotational player. I would choose an important player that is, puts everything on the line for the team, has got some balls also to disagree with me as a person, that it's not an ass kisser, but somebody who will tell me the truth, so we can have, like, real communication between each other for the good of the team. And I think then you can have something like what I think Quinn Snyder said, that you can have, like, accountability can turn into an ownership, that the players and the captain, that they kind of take over the process, or feel like it's their responsibility to drive the process, instead of the coaches who have probably laid the groundwork for that. But it doesn't happen if that choice was made because of something like past success or status, or somebody who's overwhelmed with the other stuff. So this one was easy. I appreciate it.
Had to give you one layup.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coach, my quick follow-up, and I think when me and Dan were kind of formulating this one, is how important is it to you that your leader be out on the court in crunch time? So, I mean, I think that's why we took out your best player or your key player and went with, like, a rookie, the bench, or the veteran. So how much are you concerned with maybe if your leaders are more the guys who won't always be out there end of the game?
Like I said, I prefer to have an important player for the team. Those are somewhat separate, situations. Yeah. Like, who's going to be on the floor at the end of the game is going to be decided by several things. So I don't really see it as being something that's very important.
Okay.
I do see that there, and I don't, like, equate the captaincy directly to the leadership. Like, we should have several leaders, but most of all, we should have really good followers.
Yeah.
If we have a lot of leaders and no followers, that's, I think, a worse combination. So we should have a clear voice. For us, it's oftentimes going to be the point guard at the end of the games, who's going to be responsible for the huddles offensively and get everybody on the same page. We might shoot a look between us, that we have to do this, or in free throw, somebody might be closer to me. But I'm very much a believer in that they have the right to veto me. Mm-hmm. So overrule me and do the stuff that they feel comfortable with, because of the fact that they're the actual ones who are doing it. Now, sometimes this will lead to the same play or some wrong play played several times in a row and kind of getting stuck on something. And that's obviously, that's always on me, because I've created this framework for them. But I don't think it needs to be somebody who's on the floor, but I do think it needs to be somebody who's demanding towards the others, and generally the person with very high standards for himself and for others, and not there's a great book like The Captain Class that talks about the 7 leadership traits about the captains, and what we equate with leadership, this like brash and bold and very like extroverted behavior, is quite opposite of what the conclusions of that book are, where it's more about the actions of the person, and how he's willing to put the best of the team in front of maybe what's best for him. And this is why I would never feel, if I have the right captain, would never feel bad leaving him on the bench, because he would know that it's being done in the best interest of the team.
Coach, I have a real quick follow-up for you. You mentioned that there was a year where you were a very good sort of veteran leader and a year where you were not very good. I'm wondering, when you maybe see those traits popping up in a player that you coach now, the conversations or things that you try to do to help them continue to be a good leader and not slip into maybe being a detriment to the team, like you said, maybe you potentially were back in the day?
I did apologize a couple of years ago to that coach. So if he's listening to this podcast, he knows I'm telling the truth. So I do have some integrity, but when you're in that, it's sometimes it's, you don't know what you don't know. It's just this, you think you're still doing the same thing, but you're not. And one of the things that, like, the values and one of where I would say the difficulties for the players come in our program is that we are really honest people. Like, we don't sugarcoat things. And if this is the situation, it needs to be discussed. And this is the only fair way to do it, because also for the player, and we explain this to them, because if we don't tell it to them, or we don't express like that this is not good enough, how can they change? They cannot change. Then we are hoping for, and I noticed this, trend in myself when I was a younger coach, that I would go like in the staff meetings, like, yeah, but this guy can't do that, and that guy, and he should be doing this. And then I was like, where we were like, as a group, like, well, why don't we tell them what they actually need to do? Instead of being here, feeling sorry for ourselves, and saying like, this won't work, just tell them, hey, you got to fix this. Like, right now, you're the weak link. Like, it might be somebody might be the weak link defensively, other guy, with the late game free throws. Some guy might be the weak link because he's not pulling his weight as the captain, where he would have that aura or respect from the other players. So I think that's the big thing there. Yeah.
Love that. Well, Coach, you're off the start sub sit hot seat. So you were terrific. Those are some
Luckily,
tough ones
I have
today.
my water bottle.
Yeah.
Rehydrate right away.